Welcome to the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about the Doobie Brothers and their record, Walk This Road. They released that on June 6th. This is studio album number 16 for the iconic rock and roll outfit, and their follow-up to 2021's Liberté, which is actually the first time that this band has recorded as a three-piece in its 5+ decades of existence. Michael McDonald chose to sit the last round out, despite still being listed as an official member. But for Walk This Road, he was like, "Y'all will be right there for this one." He teams up with original members Patrick Simmons, who actually owns the longest standing tenure with the band, and with Tom Johnston, who is actually, I think, for most people, the default leader of this outfit, but whose involvement was hindered through the mid to late 70s by health problems, ushering in the leadership of Michael McDonald. Then you have longtime member John McPhee, who is on board as well, and he actually has the third longest tenure in the band behind Patrick and Tom, despite only appearing on 6 Doobie Brothers records. I would say that his absence during the formidable and prolific early years of this band is cause for debate as far as the overall role that he plays in their success, but I would say that there's something to be said about his influence in keeping the drive of this outfit going over the last 3 decades or so. And what we have here with this record, Walk This Road, are the titans of one of rock and roll's most legendary and resilient outfits, just showcasing what it's all about. I think with records like this, there's a stigma that is often attached, that the idea that the best days of a band are behind them, and that if these guys wanted to, there's no reason for them to really keep making music. If they wanted to, they could tour until their hearts and wallets are content, just playing their hits for everybody. But I would say that, and this comes up on the channel fairly regularly, that this just isn't the mindset that most creative people harbor. And I think for these guys, as long as there's breath in their lungs, that they're going to keep writing new material. They're out on tour this summer, and so I think the idea of throwing in a few new jams around all of these classics is something that keeps the energy fresh, not just for long-term fans, but also for the band. I definitely think it adds a level of excitement to the whole experience for both parties. This album, produced by John Shanks, he also produced Liberté for the band. This is a guy that started playing guitar in Melissa Etheridge's band in the late 80s and has since piled up a massive stack of writing and production credits. He serves as a co-writer on every track on this record, which he also did on Liberté. And I would say that to a degree, that is where the strength of this effort lies. John has the ability to really tap into the propensities of each writer, with Mike's songs capturing that R&B and blue-eyed soul that he is so well known for. You get that dark, folk-driven outlaw edge from Patrick, and then the rockin', radio-friendly inclinations of Tom really come to the surface when he's writing with him. I think the major problem on this go-around, though, is that John isn't quite sure how to work with the vastly different style of Michael McDonald as far as incorporating it into the record. It wasn't an issue that he had to deal with on Liberté with McDonald's absence. And I think that while there are differences in Pat and Tom's writing styles, there's enough similarities that help their songs find continuity over the span of a record. Walk This Road features 10 songs, which are, I would say, pretty solid overall, but they fail to find any cohesion as an album. It almost kind of feels like John worked with these guys to develop 3 extended plays and then just mash them together as best that he could. And I would say that it's unfortunate, but I think that Tom Johnston's songs are probably the weakest on this record. And the Doobie Brothers are a band that has really functioned like a chameleon over the decades, shifting identities through many phases, but there's no denying that Tom's influence in those early years during that hot stretch with records like 1972's Toulouse Street, you have 1973's The Captain and Me, and then 1974's What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits. Even though the biggest hit on that record, I would say, comes from Patrick in Blackwater. But Tom's contributions, despite being so significant in the early years, on this record, they sound too contemporarily generic in their efforts to please a modern audience that I would say is in love with country music at this point. And I think that the vocals on his tracks are too much as well. I think the production is poor. I think the rest of the instrumentation takes a backseat to what he's doing with his vocal melodies. Pat's are solid overall and consistent with his efforts over the decades, I'd say. It's material that's not necessarily exciting, but I think more than likely to please longtime fans who are familiar with what he does. And then there's Michael, who is easily the most polarizing figure ever in this band, but there's no denying the strength of what he does stylistically. And you can argue that it's not authentic Doobie, and I will definitely entertain that argument, but his compositions are the most adventurous and solid overall on this record, I would say. And I'd argue that there's a reason that he dominates the writing credits with his return on this record. And honestly, it kind of makes me wonder if Michael and Tom even belong in the same room when it comes to the success of this band in its different iterations. I know that on stage they're great together, but in the studio, it's an entirely different thing, I would argue. Your first song is entitled Walk This Road. It features Mavis Staples on vocals. You get Mike writing this one. Drums open in jaunty fashion with a couple of dueling guitars leading the way through the intro, along with some horns and a bit of organ, and obviously Mike coming in with the vocals. The verse settles in to an upbeat combination of blues and soul with a prominent piano element going to work on this one. The hook plays on the title of the track, backed with surging bits of guitar and horns, and with Mavis providing harmony before taking the reins on that second verse. Guitar solo is going to take over on this track at about the halfway point, leading into a minimal guitar-led bridge with Mavis on vocals at that point as well. There's a back and forth between her and Michael leading into the refrain-driven coda of this track and moving into your second song entitled Angels and Mercy. This one's coming from Pat. It's going to open with an outlaw-inspired arpeggiated acoustic riff. I really like the edge on this track as it opens. And then there's like this brief moment of tremolo fiddle before this track really gets into that intro with driving percussion. The vocals in the verse move at the pace of the drums and the guitar, and then you get a bit of bass that's going to work in soon behind that with the resurgence of the fiddle and vocal harmonies to boost the overall mood of this song. The second verse reverts to that minimal terrain with a quick build back to maintain momentum. There's a middle eight that shifts to a bit of almost gospel inspired territory with this kind of like Benedictine style lyrics before shifting into the guitar solo. You get minimal guitar and vocal that's going to get us back to the chorus with more solo work taking over to lead us into the track's coda. Your third song is entitled Call Me. This one is coming from Tom. It's probably, I'd say, the weakest song on this record. It's got upbeat acoustic rhythm and electric lead that open a track that really does feel like contemporary country in this day and age. The horns are a nice little touch. They're going to work in ushering a verse with driving bass drum and thick rolling bass. And then the drums are going to find more structure in the pre-chorus, building the momentum behind bright vocals and a sparse horn element as well. The hook in the chorus plays on the title once more with catchy melodies that are infectious, but also just honestly, like they're just not that great. They don't really make an impression, I would argue. There's a solo that goes to work around the 2-minute and 15-second mark with horns dancing around it before leading into a percussion and vocal-driven bridge that brings us into the coda of this track. Your fourth song is entitled Learn to Let Go. This one is coming from Mike. You got this gentle electric blues riff that opens up a mean, sultry R&B style track with thumping bass and a groovy beat. Get these icy, shimmering synths that drone in the backdrop as well. Probably my favorite song on this record. I really like this track. You don't even need to hear Michael to know that it's him, but he's going to give you a little bit of that ooh to open things up anyway. And I love the bubble-like synth textures that play behind his vocal on this one. You get these big harmonies in the chorus with a boost from the song's textural elements to kind of enhance all of that as well. There's this smooth jazz-like solo that hits around the 2-minute and 30-second mark. And then this song is going to close with a big vocal refrain before shifting into a more subdued coda to finally close this thing out. Your fifth song is entitled State of Grace. This one is coming from Pat. It's got this mellow pedal steel fade in that ushers in this light rolling drum. Get this kind of fleshing out of this soft mid-tempo rhythm with arpeggiated acoustic guitar as this thing unfolds. That pedal steel is going to continue to work in and out of the song, along with a bit of banjo as well. And this is a track that it's about heartache and the realization that love oftentimes is irreplaceable. Very sentimental song. Harmonies take hold in the second verse and the chorus as well. You got this gentle electric riff that takes hold during the bridge with a gospel-inspired vocal that is, both of these things are vying for the listener's attention. I really like the competition there on this track. Got these gospel harmonies that continue to complement the vocals as the song moves through into its coda. Your sixth song is entitled Here to Stay. This one is coming from Tom. Got this big, soulful vocal that opens with soft, atmospheric textures in the backdrop. Lots of instrumentation that builds behind a drum roll that is going to usher in the track that's equal parts pop, rock and roll, and country. Just kind of like bringing all that pop flair together, I would say. Layers of electric and acoustic guitar drive the verses with just a light touch of piano. And then the chorus has this undeniable gospel influence with big melodies and harmonies to kind of bring all that together. The bridge adopts more of a rock and roll feel with the vocals as well, and before kind of shifting into this more breezy pop feel for the guitar solo on this track. And this song is going to finish with a couple of rounds of the chorus to close it out, leading into your seventh track, The Kind That Lasts. It's another one coming from Michael. It's going to open up with an interesting combination of blues, R&B, and I would say there's a bit of Zydeco that's really driving the influence of this song. The instrumentation loses a bit of its edge when the lead guitar drops, ushering in Michael's soulful vocals on this one. And there's a trade-off with that, with the lead and with the vocals throughout this song. The bridge takes a funky horn-driven turn at around the 2-minute and 15-second mark, leading into a brief solo and then moving into the track's coda, which is mostly instrumental, but it does incorporate a few refrains from the vocal hook on this one. Your eighth song is entitled New Orleans. This one coming from Tom. It's probably his best track on this record. Get this gentle fade in on stomping drums and a light arpeggiated electric riff. There's this funky little bass lick that joins the fun to form a light rock and roll jam that honestly, this thing really kind of reminds me of Run Through the Jungle by CCR. The vocals take the lead in the verse with the guitar becoming the most almost like absent behind them. And this is what I was talking about with some of those production issues. The harmonies are nice to complement the vocals, but they bury the rest of the instrumentation even more as this thing progresses. I'm happy to see the guitar regain more prominence in the second verse of this track. You get this early bridge that focuses on big harmonies before leading into the solo. The vocals are going to wind down with about 1 minute and 15 seconds left on the track, and then the song goes to coda with a big jam that's actually pretty enjoyable. I would say that the previous song, The Kind That Lasts, should have actually been called New Orleans just based on that overall Zydeco feel, but that's just my opinion there. Your penultimate track, your number 9 song, is entitled Speed of Pain, coming from Mike. You get soft drum programming that is spaced out with staccato synths that are backed by a second light droning synth. There's an exchange with that staccato synth and the vocals as the verse opens up. And it's a song that it's got this simple spaced out staccato piano that builds in as well. There's a lot of space that's playing around in the song, as does the acoustic rhythm and other textures that move into this composition. McDonald's vocals find momentum and intensity building into the song's hook, capped by an explosive, soulful bridge that almost kind of functions like a second chorus. I like the adventurous structure of this song. You get simple piano and lead guitar that mellow things out into the bridge, and then another soulful burst that leads into the vocal hook to finish this thing out. And then your final song, your 10th number, is entitled Lahaina. That's coming from Mike, it's coming from Mike and Pat, and it features Mick Fleetwood, Jake Shimabukuro, and then Henry Capono, I believe is how you say both their names. It's going to open with this foreboding arpeggiated acoustic riff. You get this light drum roll that ushers in a breezy groove with pleasant harmonies. Patrick is a co-writer with Mike on this one, but I would say that this track definitely feels more like Mike. You get a little piano breakdown and gospel-style harmonies that go to work around the 2-minute and 15-second mark with this interesting jazzy effect on the guitar solo. The song closes with a mellow jam and with the refrain, "Where I Belong." This is probably the most visible number from the record, inspired by the unfortunate events that transpired with the fires in Hawaii. I like that they're just giving that beautiful state a little shout out, trying to lift up their spirits with the song, because I know that was a very difficult time for everybody that was out there having to deal with that. It's always a terrible thing. Being out here in Arizona, proximity to California, we deal with a lot of wildfires, and it really is it's a terrible thing that regularly occurs. And unfortunately, a lot of those end up being man-made, and that makes it even more frustrating. So I do love that they throw that track out there, a little homage to a beautiful place in the world. This album overall, as I said, is solid. Like, I'm glad that these guys are out there still writing music, adventuring around with their style, mixing things up a little bit. But again, I think overall this is it's an effort that just feels too disjointed. It doesn't really seem to come together as a whole, with all three writers kind of vying for attention. I would say that this record for me is a 6.4 out of 10. And again, like, I'm glad for the purposes of live shows that they have some new material to throw into the mix. And ultimately, I hope that they keep making music, because as I stated, it's just what is at the heart and soul of creative people. I would just say that to date, this is probably not the band's strongest effort, and hopefully down the road, maybe even bringing in a different producer outside of John, someone that can maybe really find a way to bring their three styles together on a record that just has more overall continuity and a more whole experience. I hope you guys enjoyed this record, though, if you decide to listen to it. Hope you find this review helpful. Probably going to pass on the vinyl on this one, but who knows? My opinions might change over time. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up over the course of 2025, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.